Have you ever stopped to think how money is actually being created? Here is the truth. 90% of all the money in the existence in the entire world doesn't exist in the physical form. And yet it powers our cities, our countries, our governments, and our lives. Sounds crazy, right? But in this video, I'm gonna break it all down for you. I'm gonna show you how banks actually legally invent money and how the wealthy use this system to enrich themselves while most of the people are being stuck paying for it. Let's go. First of all, let's understand the illusion of money. Let's say that I lend you $1,000 and then you lend this $1,000 to a friend, and then your friend lends it to another friend, and then that friend lends it back to me $1,000. From all of this activity, we all four have still $1,000, and yet $4,000 have been created out of thin air, which is based on just promises. This is how the world economy works, based on the credit system. In fact, there's estimates over $300 trillion exist in the world that is based on debt. Who is it being owed to the aliens? But how is this possible? Let's understand how the banks legally invent money. You see, when you apply, for example, for a mortgage, you want to buy a house, and this house mortgage is cost $200,000, right? So you want to borrow from the bank $200,000. They're going to look at your credit score, how trustworthy you are, your income, your ability to repay that debt. And if it's all checks out, they're going to give you this $200,000, but they're not going to get it from the vault and physically give you this cash. No. And they're going to just type it all out. Boom. Just like that, they type it out and it appears on your screen. And when it lands into the seller's bank account and actually being withdrawn, that's when it becomes spendable. You see, banks understand that at any given time, only 10% of the money actually, at most, is gonna be actually used and withdrawn. So how is it even possible that banks just type it out money? That's where the fractional reserve system comes into play, FRS. So basically what it means is that banks are legally not obliged to keep the money that is being deposited into the bank into their vault. So what do? They keep only a small fraction, maybe 10%, maybe less, and they lend it all out, so it creates an effect of money being created. So if you put $1,000 in the bank and they keep $100 of it, they take $900 and they loan it out to somebody else, and it becomes a new deposit. And then from that, another 90% is being loaned out, etc., etc. It creates a whole effect of this new money being created. So it is insane how it actually works. And following the COVID pandemic, March 2020, the banks in US are no longer required to have any minimum reserves. They can let it out everything, right? So it's absolutely insane as long as they think that this borrower is trustworthy. So the whole system is based on trust, right? So this is where the rich get cheap money, right? There is a cheap money and there is expensive money. So what is the difference? The cheap money is when you go to the bank, and because you have a good credit score, you have good income, you have assets, the bank may loan you money at 3%, for example. But if your situation is bad, they will exploit you. They will lend you money at 10%, 15%, 20%, or even more, right? And the wealthy, let's take it, you get cheap money. Let's say you get it at 3% a year. If you're lazy investors, you're not like taking this money and buy some consumables, buy a car that depreciates in value on some other bullshit. You are actually invested it, right? You're investing this money. Let's say you invest it in an index fund, right? Or invest in an S&P 500. So historically, it's been returning 10% a year. 10% a year. But you borrow at 3%, right? And you get 10% a year. So you literally use the system against itself. You take cheap money, you invest it, you make more money out of it. And that's how the rich, they borrow money, they invest it into the assets, and they never sell them, and they keep. That's how they use debt wisely, instead of what most people do. They take on debt on consumables, anything that depreciates in value, vacations, whatever, right? That's not the way to do it. So the system is not perfect. I'll give you an example. In Japan, in the 1980s, there was an ability to borrow very cheap yen. People took the yen, converted to US dollars, and invested it into higher yields opportunities. And what happened? The Japanese economy got so inflated, the stock market, real estate market got so inflated, it completely collapsed. And what followed is 10 years of stagnation that Japan still has not recovered from to this day, right? So if you look at US, it has $37 trillion of debt. It's also on the verge of collapsing, and the real estate and the stock market can collapse. It can happen, just like it was in Japan in the 1980s. So the system has flaws, but also it has advantages as well, because if it was not for the credit systems, we would not be building so much stuff. The infrastructure, the hospitals. Imagine, if the country would need to save up in advance in order to build all of this infrastructure, it will take decades to build it. And now, in the modern economy, people build it today for the income that will come into the future. So I hope it enlightens you a little bit. You understand how money actually is being created, and most of it just doesn't exist in the physical form. If you want to learn more about how you can actually take advantage of this knowledge and apply it into your personal economy, your personal life, in order to make smarter financial decisions, build your wealth, create multiple income streams, well, join me in the Financial Freedom Academy, where we dive into all these topics, how you can increase your net worth and build your wealth to last. I'll see you in the next videos.